could we start off, first of all, I'm very, very happy to have you on the air with us today, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you to begin with.
Right back at you.
Okay. Can you explain to us your disease and how you pronounce it and what it's called and all that kind of stuff?
Well, it's a syndrome, which could be defined as it's birth defect, basically. It's not a disease. It's called hypohidrotic ectodermal dysplasia with synostosis of the cranium. What that means is my skull was solid, had no soft spot, or it was normally like the Earth has. There was a time when all the continents were one, and then they separated, and if you put them back together, where they would touch would be where you would have fissures or areas in a normal child's skull that the new growth would expand with those plates, and then it would all become solid once the brain has reached its growth potential, and then the skull accommodates that space. Okay. My skull was not so structured.
Right.
My father was a Navy surgeon, tested Marine third division, went to secret mission. He went to Hiroshima after the lab experiment.
Oh, wow.
He was a neurologist and surgeon. So he came home radiated, obviously, and because radiation, nuclear, all that lovely stuff, creates problems with your genetics and your DNA and a lot of other things.
Yes.
So because of that exposure to radiation, me being the second born, I received a gift from splitting the atom, which was devastating. I was born premature, so the ends of my fingers and the ends of my toes are my knuckles. I have I have 4 fingernails, no toenails. My upper jaw was not fully developed to match my lower jaw. And the area across your eyes and nose and the sinus areas were also underdeveloped. In my late 30s, I had some reconstructive surgery done, which was beneficial. I couldn't breathe through my nose very well, and it also helped support my orb of my eyes because they would droop a little bit, and that would create drying eye issues, which all that has since been fixed. Also, my teeth were underdeveloped, so I had dentures at about age 6, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And the other thing is that my hair, I had hair, but I had to have it shaved off for the reconstructive skull surgery at Children's Hospital, which would be the equivalent of when I would have been in first grade. So they literally went all around my skull, and if you drew a meridian line, like an equator line around it where the tip of your ears are, and then you ran some lines going maybe 3 to 4 inches above that and below that in different paths to create the equivalent of the plates of the skull. So they would knit back together, hopefully, and create a skull which is, shaped in a normal manner, which I was fortunate to have that be the result. They took bone fragments from my pelvis and used them as spacers to bridge where the plates had been designated. Also, my ability to perspire is also not developed, so that created a lot of heat issues and heat stroke issues over my entire life, basically. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, wait, then how do you deal with working on the set with around all the lights and all that kind of stuff? How do they work with you?
Well, in the older days, we had the carbon arc lighting, like when we did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that was really harsh. And over time, they used different types of lights. The AMIs came out, and of science, the art of lighting has changed over the years, which is wonderful. Well, what it meant for me was, before I got discovered by George Powell and got into acting, which was something I had never planned to do, I had a lot of different types of employment, from being a logger. I had my own firewood business, just me and a couple of guys, climbing trees. I've done taxi driving. I've done bail bond work. I've done delivery work, taxi cooking, you name it. Well, I had a lot of food and beverage work, and the long story short, kitchens get hot. Didn't know how severe it was. So in my younger years, I just really started to realize I get dizzy, get overheated. I was an Eagle Scout, so I knew a lot of basics. I took 2 years of pre-med.
Oh, wow.
Check my vitals, and I go, oh, wow. Heart rate's too high, the body temperature's too high, and then over time, the core temperature becomes an issue. It can cause, organ failure,
right.
If you have severe heat stroke. I've had a couple of really severe issues over, the last 60-something years. And over time, I could not return to the type of employment I had in the past. So when I got the break to get into acting, thanks to George, I basically realized, I had friends that worked for Disney when I was a kid in grammar school, and we knew some actors. I didn't want the attention, having a physical, visual difference as a child. I mean, bullying is very much in awareness these days, so I knew how that drill would go. So, I had a small group of good friends that would accept me for who I was and how I behave and how I chose to live my life. But,
right.
Outside the house, there was issues in school. I had a fiery temper. I would, it would hurt my feelings. I'd be sad, maybe cry, whatever, to ask my parents, I don't want to go back to school, just that wise life sucked. But I also had an ability to be very brutal and right in people's face and verbally tell them exactly what I thought of their behavior. I would usually address the parents and tell them that they're raising some children. They're going to cause them a lot of grief, and this is hurtful behavior. So when I worked on Cuckoo's Nest, that was my day 3. I'd worked 2 days for George Powell on the Doc Savage movie. And then I worked 127 days, 6 days a week on Cuckoo's Nest. So having a minor in art history, I just appreciated the whole aspect of storytelling and how you put a film together, and it's a wonderful art form. So that was something I thought, I'm interested in.
Well,
I figured after Cuckoo's Nest, I could go off to Alaska and homestead, which is what I wanted to do. But that's when I bumped into Wes, and we did the Hills. So it turned into a possibility of a career. But I would basically go to the first aid person, our medic, and explain to them that I needed them to keep an eye on me and occasionally come up to me after blocking or between scenes on the side where there's a cool area.
Right.
And water doesn't really help because I don't sweat and it doesn't evaporate to create any cooling sensations. So sometimes I would have ice packs, sit by a fan. But, I didn't want it to be such a situation where people would turn me down for work. So it was a delicate balancing act, but if you're honest and straight up, other people have concerns, on a set. And I realized in time that a movie set and a movie company, production company, can become an extended family.
Mm-hmm.
And that became one of the blessings of what I've been doing for the last 40, 50 years. And so it became easier to accommodate. But it is still an issue, especially, in the summer and when it's warm. Some sets are real hot. And, so I still have to be very cautious.
Well, I admire you for being able to speak with people and tell them what the issues are and bring it into the light to speak of, to help the other people and yourself at the same time.
Well, it's something that we all need to, we all have our glitches, so to speak, and it doesn't make us weird or different or freaky. It makes us human beings with human issues. And so, like when I met Paul Newman when I was doing The Crow with Brandon Lee, he introduced me to his charities in Florida. And the particular charity was the Bogey Creek Gang with the Florida Facial Cranial Society out of St. Petersburg. And they have a facility there where they invite families and children, and they cover all the bases. They have people even house sit your home if that's necessary. And they get the best medical help for their children, and then they assess them and they pay for all their surgeries, kind of like the Shriners. And so there's another example of why our industry is such a wonderful, wonderful field of service.
There's a lot of, I think in your life you're very blessed to meet all these wonderful people that were not only talented, but were able to get you what you wanted to in life.
What I wanted in life was to be able to, provide for myself and my family, and appreciate the the liberties that we have to tell a story. Some are just simple stories that make you laugh or scare you, and then there's the deeper levels, like like The Outer Limits or Rod Serling, or other gifted writers like Joss Whedon, etc., and Chris Carter, that can bring the humanity out. I remember working with Michael Landon, and I had learned a lot about his personal history, and he didn't really have to make the film about him being a javelin thrower and the issue with his mom and the bedwetting and all of that stuff. But Michael was such an honest, wonderful guy. I started to see examples of unselfish, wealthy, talented people that cared more about society and the human condition and the planet that we live on, that we call home. I mean, I started to see philanthropy, humanity, and all of those things that make it worth getting out of bed in the morning.
Yes. Was Michael too at the same time, even though is he a little bit of a practical joker on the set, I heard? Or?
Yes. Yeah. He, I remember we were in Culver City, we were filming outside, and there was a basketball court nearby, and I forget what the scene was. It was Highway to Heaven, and there were some kids shooting hoops, so they were setting up for a shot, and Michael walked over and asked the kids. Well, they were actually, in your lag spare change, and then whoever gets closest gets the coinage. So he pulled out a couple quarters, and we started lagging spare change, and Michael won. When he won for the first time, this one little boy goes, "Hey, man, you're a millionaire. Why are you taking my money?" And Michael looked at him. He said, "Are we playing a game?" And the kids go, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, well, I won, right?" "Yeah, let's go again." So, as far as practical jokes. I didn't see much. I have heard those stories. But he was very much a perfectionist and very honest and very warm and good sense of humor. And I remember him telling me how, he had to kind of do everything himself because a lot of the studios at different times, you can offer them a wonderful concept and they go, no. Or, our experts say that that's not what people want. Well, sometimes they're not the creative people; they're the business end of it, the distribution end of it. So
now,
sometimes it's good to take a chance.
Very much so. And do we have time for one more question?
Yes.
Okay. The time that your dad, maybe you tell the story great, but the time that your dad wanted to check out your brain.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, my father was gowned during the skull surgery. He didn't do any procedures, of course, but he did observe. But I remember he had a wry sense of humor. I don't know what dry sense of humor is, British, and he said, the parents had to sign the report cards, and he goes, you can get better grades. You have a good brain. I've seen it.
Actually
there's just no snappy comeback for that kind of stuff. So, but he had a really good way of, by example, not so much a lot of words. Like I would go with him on to visit patients, go on rounds at the hospital and stuff, and we're just driving around town. He would point somebody out that might be walking oddly, and he'd say, "Why do you think they're walking oddly?" And I said, "I don't know." He would describe to me their condition or their syndrome. I remember him at his desk at the house shaking his head, and I said, "What's up, Dad?" And he goes, "I have to go to the office tomorrow and tell, it was Cassius Clay at the time, not Muhammad Ali, and tell Mr. Clay that seriously, he should not go to Manila and get hit in the head anymore because he'll come down with Parkinson's." And he did, and it did happen. So he even had the Secret Service come 3 times to my house. When two Kennedys were murdered, and Marilyn Monroe was also murdered. And he took it to his deathbed, but he told me how it happened. But I will not divulge it over the air. But he was, like I said, he was a Navy surgeon, a Marine, a good man. And the last thing I'd do is shout out to the Hippocratic Oath, which is when he had a lot of medical issues in his final years, but he put it in his will not to sue people for their inability to pay. You pay what you can, and these days, medical care costs more bankruptcy than anything. The United States we have a long way to go to get caught up with the rest of the world and treat our people right. They have to make it. And I'm proud. I'll just say I'm proud that the kids are going to register and vote. And I think come November we'll have more hope for humanity and all the people that live in this nation. Because if we don't, then I'll tell you, because I've met them. I used to be a legal courier in Los Angeles for a friend of mine. And I have sat down, I could mention the top 20 corporations that everybody knows about, but not to mention their names. But I have taken legal documents to the billionaires' offices and to other places where they needed to be delivered, which I always did my job. But I've had them answer questions that I had, and one was, explain the map on the wall. And I'm talking, if you took the top 20 global corporations, and I named the names, you would go, oh, yeah, okay. They don't care about countries. They live on private islands. They do their banking on Canary Islands or the Bermuda Islands or offshore. They don't pay their fair share. And the maps of the world were no countries.
That's
corporate global zones of control.
Mm-hmm.
Every place I went to had the exact same map. There's globules that didn't look like states, countries, or provinces, and they're either white, dark, red, or shades of in between. And below the map of the world, with no countries, was a rectangle that had the colors and the lines coming down with the names of the top 100 corporations that are global, and they own the world. So I asked one of the $5,000 suits one day what it meant, and he basically leaned back in his chair and he said, "We own everything, we run everything, and we control everything." And I go, "Oh, I guess you like war and pain and suffering."
They don't.
He just gave me a weird look, but I mean, come on, this guy had lions and tigers and elephants and rhinoceros tusks, and he was a trophy hunter.
Right.
Of course, explain to your grandchildren when everything was extinct. You know, of course, could they care? No, not. So the future is the children. So when you see a kid, anybody listening to this, when you see a kid, help them out. Oh, and yes, teach them cursive. They don't teach that in America anymore.
Yeah,
How to
they
read
don't.
and write. And so if you're an elder and you've seen a lot in life and you're wondering where the world's going to go, don't worry too much. Don't wonder too much. Don't be confused. Pick something positive and stick with it, and you'll make a difference. That's all I got to say.
Michael, thank you so much, and
You're welcome.
thank you for sharing your love and your heart. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it's all good, brother.
Talk to you.
Talk to you soon.